and then I'll introduce you.
Oh, okay.
All right, all right, all right. So here we are, day 3 of Sing Your Heart Song Summit, evening edition. I have the honor of introducing our next presenter, Coralee Kulman. Coralee Kulman is the author of a 3-book series called Come Alive. She is certified in neurolinguistic programming. She's certified in life coaching, and she has a wealth of life experiences to achieve profound results for her clients. Through her Come Alive Register program and personal empowerment process coaching system, Coralee is able to turn your negative thinking, negative people, negative events in your life into life-changing positives. So clients who have worked with Coralee have said this: Coralee is wonderful. She has a gift of listening, understanding, and recommending creative solutions to any personal or professional challenges you may be having. You know, I took a look at your website, Coralee, and I love the quote that you have there front and center, and I'd like just to share that with everyone. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Howard
That,
Thurman.
that's
And I
how
see you've got that on your wall.
yes, that's how I chose my moniker. Hearing that.
So wonderful. And it's the title of your coaching, it's the title of your book. So I'm very, very curious to learn from you today. Take it away.
Thank you. Okay, let me share. Oops, come on. Why aren't you coming up? Let's try this again. Share screen. There it is. There we go. And that little thing is in the way of me clicking show. Okay. How can I move that? Just like that. There. Oh, the thing about coming alive is that it's pretty cool. I want to tell you what I'm going to do today. I'm going to share a little bit of my story because I was dead emotionally for a lot of years because based on my childhood and early marriages. But I'm going to tell you what it means to come alive, the way things that get in the way and concepts that support getting alive, and how is coming alive related to being your authentic self and thus sing your heart song. So my story is one of I was sexually abused as a child. My first marriage had domestic violence in it. I left in the middle of the night from my first husband, and I was pregnant with my third son. And I was very, very confused for a long, long time. And I suffered from suicidal depression. I suffered from PTSD, and I was lost for a long, long time. However, and this is how I survived, I ate my way into comfort. And that was me at 315 pounds. My journey to come alive was something that was based on the fact that I'd done well in school. So I thought I was smart. I just didn't know how life worked. So I got real curious about how does life work? I became a research addict, as I've said, and I became a self-help junkie, and just I wanted to solve the problems, and that's when I became a coach. It was natural for me because I was into solution finding all the time. So what does coming alive mean? It means a number of things, but mostly it's about living an authentic life. And by that, I mean, we are programmed as children in a sense. I call them blank spots. We have unconscious memories that get in the way of our lives, and we have a hesitation during our lives, and we don't know where it come from because it's not conscious. It's, you know, children don't have the language or the concepts to process what's going on. And even a fairly functional home can be very, very difficult because of the misunderstanding that a child has. And it's like, to come alive, you have to think differently about a lot of things. You have to think differently about challenges. Are they really opportunities, or are they just confirming that you're a loser, you know? And that was me for a long time. I was afraid that I was going to look stupid and weak, and I was very, very scared. Talk about fear. That was, as I shared earlier, that was something I did a lot of research about for a while. So what come up for me in forming my coaching and doing my own work, I came up with the areas that Come Alive represent: emotional strength, mental focus, physical well-being, spiritual awareness, relationship connection skills, and manifesting your dreams. Those are the components of coming alive. In fact, book number 2 is what that's all about, is the different misunderstandings we have that keep us from having that balanced life. For me, the indicator of coming alive was when I started to sing at the top of my voice while driving a car. Believe me, that was like freedom to be who I was. And so it was very helpful. And to move and dance and laugh. And for each one, it's different, of course, but these are some of the things that coming alive is. It's peace and freedom, bottom line, it's peace and freedom. So what gets in the way of coming alive? Well, as I've learned in coaching, especially, that I have a client come in and say to me, what, they're telling me all the things they don't want. And that's the first thing that gets in the way of coming alive, is not focusing on what you want, getting specific about it. Because I'm a real proponent of what you focus on increases. And I have a couple who have for 30 years had this ongoing thing. And I'm going, well, why didn't you ever consider that there might be another way of doing it? And it's because they focused on what they wanted the other one to do rather than what they really wanted, really deeply from their heart. I'm a real proponent of learning to be comfortable with your feelings, because that's how I got out of the you moved ahead without my permission. But I'm a real proponent of being real clear what you want, and then how will you know that you've found it? So what concepts support coming alive? Well, the first one, of course, is knowing what you want. The second is really redefining what challenges are. And I can't say that enough. the day, the period of time that I realized that I was seeing challenges as another problem to solve, another situation to work out, another thing that I couldn't do right or something like that. When I realized it was really an opportunity to gain some new awareness. One of the things that I do is work with people on finding their own personal solution finding process. And it's like when you find a process, you suddenly realize that every time you get a challenge, it's going to give you new awareness. With new awareness and understanding, you have new change. And it's I remember the first time I thought, oh, this is an opportunity to learn something new. And my favorite question is, I have a process, but I distilled it down into one question: is what is it I need to understand to make this decision or solve this problem or get out of this, And so I learned that when people have that concept that challenges are really an opportunity to learn something new and valuable and increase your life skills and your understanding of how life works, I realized how we aren't taught life skills. We aren't taught to how to find solutions. We aren't taught to feel our feelings. And it's really truly about that's what life is about, is learning how to live it in an authentic, from your heart, clarity way. Some of the other things is that I learned that the concept of when the going gets tough, it's almost over. If you just hang in for a little while, that's a concept that when things get real tough for me, it's like, oh, this is at the worst. Oh, that's a good thing because I'm going to finally get out of it. The other concept is learning that being vulnerable, being open to new ideas, these things really do change your life when you accept them as how you live your life. And one of the things I do is talk about what I call those unconscious messages we have from our childhood. I teach people how to turn it around, and I might even do one for somebody here. How does coming alive relate to your being your authentic self? Being authentic is coming alive. It's your true heart song, because we have so many things going on, the childhood messages, the failures and the successes we have as teens and young adults, and they can teach us who we are, or we can actually do what in neuro-linguistic programming calls as disassociate. It's like another part of you. And I realized that recently as I've been on this journey to reverse diabetes and high blood pressure. I've gone from 5 meds to 1. And it's because I'm using these principles and these processes on myself. I practice what I preach. And the thing is that when you have I discovered I had a disassociated self. You can call it an inner voice, or you can call it a part of you. I mean, we all have it. We have, sometimes we want to do something and sometimes we don't want to do something. I call those parts, or your inner voice. I had a part of me that saved me I actually gave it a name, her a name. It's Rescue, because when I was in the throes of domestic violence, suffering, all this stuff, she led me to food. She comforted me. I survived. And I realized, unfortunately, she was still doing it. And so I had to meet up with her and create a partnership. Because one thing that happened was anytime I would work on getting the rest of the weight off, I'd have a day of binge where I'd be tired or frustrated, and I'd go comfort myself, and then I'd get it, just run with it. And so I realized that she was also trying to tell me that, because every time that would happen, I would go, what's going on here? What is it I need to understand? And she was trying to tell me there was some more understanding that I needed to have. A recent one was a biggie for me, was that I told somebody I was talking about these occasional binges, which keeps my weight kind of just at the same instead of being consistent and moving with my food plan and exercise, that I just wasn't getting anywhere. And I said, I just feel emotionally, I don't feel strong emotionally. And I heard myself say that. I heard myself say, what? That's not true. I'm a strong and powerful woman. I have great things that I've done in my life, and it's taken perseverance and strength, and it was like, whoa. It was like blowing the awareness all of a sudden exploded. And a couple days later, I didn't sleep well, and I got up and I was exhausted. And I decided I'm canceling my day. I'm just going to take care of me. And what I did was I focused on what self-care was. And I realized that was the answer to the final instance of cravings and binges and feelings and all the things that went into my healing. The emotional connection to food was that I needed to start being loving and nurturing and super self-care attention to Coralee. And it changed my life. Changed it so much that I found myself going through all my coaching and all my writing and all this stuff to reevaluate it. And that's the kind of ahas that I love seeing in my clients. So I have resources in my coaching, and there's resources that are people who like to figure it out for themselves, and there's people that like to find someone to talk to about new information. And those who like to figure it out themselves, I have my books. My first book is about the change, how to create change in your life. And it's as you can see there, it's an acronym, ALIVE, and it's a process that's fairly simple. It's like we don't think in terms of having processes to make a change. We just react, and we don't know what to do. We wing it. We do things that we've seen done before. This book clearly talks about the blank spots and how they get in the way of each one of these items. And the second book is, like I shared, shows the different things that get in the way of having emotional strength and all the other components. And I fulfilled a lifetime of dream of writing these books, because one of the things when I was in such terrible straits emotionally and mentally, was I wanted a life manual. Tell me how it's supposed to work. And so essentially that's what I did is in 3 books is, it's just because do we learn any of these things? Well, we learn about physical well-being. And if you're church, go to your church, you learn about spiritual things. But anyway, needless to say, I can teach people that. Oh, it went backwards. And the last book is on relationships. It's all about the different kinds of relationships we have, especially the one with yourself. And those books, it's been a long process. It's been years that I've been doing that. And it's been 3 years that I've worked with my publisher and editor. And the last time I did an edit of them all, I thought, oh, I've grown so much. I'm sure that's not going to be relevant. And it was like, no, it was all relevant. It was just that I had learned it on a deeper level. And so I was real pleased that I didn't have to make a big edit. The other resource is for people who want coaching or someone that can do that. And I actually have a registered process called Personal Empowerment Process. And here, let's give you an example of what I do. Does somebody have a negative thought they would like to get rid of? One that circles around in their head.
Trying to find one. I feel like I've eliminated.
Good. Awesome.
So many throughout the summit, but there's one that's lingering where I like the need to be liked. Okay. And
that's a good one.
Like someone out there will not like me.
Oh boy, I know that one well. My core issue in life, of course, was feeling rejected because talking about being molested, and I'm 77 years old. In those days, when you talked about that kind of thing, they just ignored it. They didn't talk about it. That wasn't even considered anything. So not being liked. Now, if you knew that when you feel that way, your mind was really trying to give you a signal of your next learning experience or what it is that yes, right.
That tap we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, right. What would that positive message be that it's really trying to tell you about being liked?
I can like myself, regardless.
Awesome. See, and now what I usually do when I go through this process with somebody is ask them to give a funny name to that feeling of not being liked. Give it a funny, the funnier the better.
Pompaloosa.
Awesome. Look at you laugh. Oh my God, you're liking yourself a lot. The thing is, now every time you run across that feeling that you're afraid you're going to not be liked, you're going to think Papaloosa. Oh, I'm really liking myself, and that's where it all starts. So I do that in my process with every negative thought. I had someone who had 13 areas, and she would get so emotional about it. She was so afraid of climate change killing animals and killing us all, and she just was a mess. And by the time I had 3 sessions with her, we went through the list again, and she pretty much changed it all. It's like realizing that our mind is always working for us. And it's always trying to help us understand what we need to do to be our best self. So I'm more of a teacher than I don't tell people what to do, uh, because it has to come, as Heather talked about, it has to come, empowerment has to come from yourself. And it's so important to realize that how much those negative thoughts can, they're unconscious, but they interfere with your life in ways you don't realize. I didn't realize that really the binging was about learning something new and learning how to take care of myself. It was about a will, calling on my strength, And when I learned that and turned it around, it was like, I don't binge anymore. I literally, it went away. I have a sense of wholeness. I have a sense that there's that rescue who has joined the team instead of fighting it. So how did that feel when you did this, Olivia?
I really liked it. Now I can think about just Pumpaloosa.
And laugh. I love it.
Laugh. Yeah.
In my process, I do the negative thinking, people that have come into our lives that affect us, and I have different questions and events, and but I also go through the 6 components, and they are we kind of explore what it really means, and then I ask to rate where you are on a scale of 1 to 10, in emotional strength. Are you well, I've had people do 5, and then we talk about what's getting in the way of you not being a 10, and it gets us those blank spots out, gets us those things that are going around our head we don't know about. And I teach about how the mind works a little bit, because again, that's not something we're taught in school unless you're real interested in psychology, especially the brain function. So this is me now. I'm a bodybuilder, and I've come alive. So I want to leave you with one thing. Coming alive is living a life that's more satisfying than your wildest dreams could ever conceive. Go wild, go big, go for the brass ring and come alive. That's in my first book. So, is there anything, I'm good for questions. I'm good for solving problems, even on the spot.
So tell me more about that process of naming, and do you name your blind spots, or is it
what you do is whatever negative thought that that circles around in your heads. Mine was fear of rejection. Mine was this. I had a lot of issues that I felt like I was stupid and weak and all that kind of stuff. Is to focus on it, and then know by asking your mind, what is it that I'm trying to understand in a positive way? What is it you're trying to tell me? And then let your intuition bring something up, like I like myself, and then I do the funny thing, because it helps remember it. Some of the names people come up with, one of them was like Jerry Springer. He has his Jerry Springer moments. Not talking against, but anyway, and I I sometimes we will go for the whole works, and I've worked with, I think the longest time a woman wanted to work them all, we were 4 or 5 hours in a session. And she left a testimony on my website that said she's gone to counselors and coaches, but I was the one that taught her how life worked, life skills. And it just turned, people say, here's what they say: I didn't see life as positive, as it just
Mhm.
gets it out of the way. And it doesn't matter what it is, it can be real serious stuff. I had a woman whose childhood was horrendous. Her mother sold her. She was into drugs. She was in juvenile. She had all kinds of things. And basically, the basic thing she had was she was worthless.
Mm.
And I listened to her story, and of course, no judgment. It wasn't, and I gave her some input, and in no time at all, she walled off that part. She just, this is how her experience was. She walled off that stuff with her mother in her first marriage, and was able, oh my God, it's so good when you start seeing she's starting to set boundaries. She's starting to talk to her children differently, and now she was having this relationship with a guy that he was, I guess the best way to put it, he's a little narcissistic. He was always talking about himself and what he was doing. And
Mm.
she finally told him it wasn't working for her. And it was like, oh my God, it was a big deal to come up with a way to say it that she felt comfortable with, and but it was just amazing. And that's the kind of thing I do. And I love doing the work because it's like amazing how I went through a real stressful period a couple of months back, and I didn't even have stress in my vocabulary. So it was quite shocking. It was like everything went to hell. The toilet handle fell off. My husband is not a mechanical kind of person, so it was all my emails went nuts, and
Mm.
my printer went nuts, and this and that, and it was like, I guess I needed to learn about stress. And it turns out my next 2 clients were very stressful. And
So you are prepared.
yes, yes. And it seems like they go into like themes. For a while I was getting people who were so codependent that they just were sure that their partner was off the wall with the way they were living their lives. And I had one client who, when I made her read chapter 4 in Codependence No More, which really talks about what it means.
Sure.
And and she freaked out because she thought I was telling her she was mentally ill. So after working with her and saying, no, there's different levels of codependency, and she finally got it. It was interesting. She happened to have the book. Someone had given it to her. And her relationship just shifted immediately once she grasped what was going on. It wasn't him, that he wasn't responding, because when she'd get into these modes of telling him what he needed to do, he'd just clam up. Well, that didn't help. And so then just last May, they got married, and they're just doing great.
Wow.
But I had a whole series of them. It was like all of a sudden everybody had codependent issues. It's like, okay,
So
go
even
ahead.
though it might look bad in the moment, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a bad outcome, that things can be turned around.
Always. And I know you're struggling with your son, and
Well, he's struggling.
Yeah, right.
trying to support him.
I hear you. I hear you. No, it's hard. I have a client that's she's divorced, and two of her kids live with her ex, and they're teens, and she just feels like oh, she had such an issue with being the baby of the family and not feeling good enough, and 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 so she couldn't figure out how to connect with them. And I said, well, you have to realize that teenagers are, their task is to separate from their parents. If you keep pushing to connect with them and go to lunch with them and talk about how your relationship is, it's very confusing.
That's a really good point.
Well, and so I said, she realized that that she could text them and just say simple things like thinking about you, love you, and they'll respond, and maybe they won't respond, but it puts no pressure on them. And I'm real good at helping people figure out what to say or do when they struggle with a particular issue with children or spouses.
Sure.
Because I'm very, very sensitive to anything that feels negative. And, that's my thing. And so we find a way to say it that feels authentic, but respectful.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually that's kind of along the lines of my son, Benjamin, is going through a difficult time right now. But because I've gone through my own difficult times, I actually I feel a lot of hope and optimism for how this hopefully will turn out for him. He's still got to do the work, and he's still got to,
right.
I can't give it to him. And I have confidence that things will work out, that he will find
good. I know we raised a girl from 5th grade. She was the daughter of an ex-girlfriend of my oldest sons, and when they separated, she wouldn't let us go. She still came and saw us and saw my son. She considered him dead because her father was kind of lost and didn't know where he was at. And then at some point when she was in the 5th grade, I got a call from her uncle that her mother had sent her to his house across Burien at 9 at night on her bicycle. And we took custody of her. Her mother was, someone who depended on abusive men because she didn't have talent. A year later, her mother was murdered. And the thing is that we have to just really work at finding I guess the best way to put it is focus on what you want and do the visualization like Mike Dooley talks about,
Sure.
And then let your intuition help you figure out what to do.
Okay.
We have a question from John. Let me
Yes,
pull up
John.
the question.
Oh, I can't see the chat.
That's okay. So John asked in the chat, do these dismissive statements to the negatives need to be repeated many times so they vanish eventually?
Sometimes just in the acknowledge them and recognizing that you can choose something different is all that it takes. It's also a part of learning your personal solution finding process, that whenever you feel off, you don't really need to process them over and over to get them to happen. You can't, if that works for you, I highly recommend doing that. You know, I have some affirmations that just touch my heart, and I love saying those to myself. However, sometimes understanding where you were and where you can be now is enough, and sometimes it takes just letting it unfold by, oh, I'm feeling off today. What is it that's going on? And then work with it on another level.
Can you share those affirmations with us, Coralee? What are some of your favorites?
Okay. I have an app that my
There's an
current
app for
one,
everything.
yes. I have an app where I keep my my tasks to do, and marketing a book and coaching, and there's a lot to do. The current ones I have right now are, I was made for love and community. I was made for successful coaching of 3 or 4 clients a week. I was made for vibrant health. I was made to be a bestseller author. I was made to do big things in this world. And they all feel congruent. The thing about affirmations, if they don't feel congruent with what you believe about yourself, you'll have backlash. But those just feel like where I'm at right now.
Thank you so much for sharing. I haven't heard ones that had I was made for. So that was different.
I need to look up where they came from, because they're not mine. I was made for. I have a feeling that who it is, but I don't want to say it because I'm not sure.
No, that was different. I like that. I haven't heard of affirmations that started with I was made for. I might just come up with some of my own tonight.
Yeah, cool.
I like Coralee, or actually, there is a question that Jewel asked earlier about your relationship book. Trying to find it. And Jewel, you're feel free to answer or ask the question live. But she asked, does your book speak to the kindness of strangers or support networks online / neighbors?
My book speaks to the message that that saved me was learn the meaning of love and how to express it. And that is the target of all of that I do. And yes, it talks about, I don't know if it specifically talks about kindness, but it talks about the things that get in the way of being kind. You know, it talks about labeling people and about conflict. I talk a lot about how conflict evolves and how you can change the dynamic of it whenever a conflict comes up. And I talk about how to be realistic about relationships. One thing I talk about is trust. And my take on trust is that it's never about the other person. It's about, I just did an and I'm thinking of Toastmasters.
It's okay. You noticed it, so that's celebration.
I believe trust is about learning to trust yourself and assessing where a person's at and where they will struggle and where they might let you down. And then trusting yourself that you can get through it no matter what happens, or you can find a way around it. And so I talk about all that different aspects of love and connecting with people.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
The reason I put that question in is because when you've been betrayed by your family and those closest to you, the sorts of people who ultimately really should have had you back, if you like. The
Oh,
kindness
been there, done that.
exactly. The kindness of strangers and the more distant in these days virtual
Yes,
support
yes,
networks
yes.
can very frequently give you a gateway back to healing so that you can then endeavor to rectify the twisted version that you
You got
picked
it
up as
right
a
on,
child.
dear. Wow. No, I for years, because I had this whole rejection thing, I was so desperate to connect with my siblings. Well, I'm in a different world than they are. They're hunters and fishers, and they're good people. But I would also, when I was learning, try to fix them. Ooh. And then roll their eyes and and I finally had to realize that they were good people, and then the way that I let it go was, first of all, I disconnected with them from Facebook, because I would get jealous. I would feel envious that they were all getting together and they didn't invite me. And the other thing I did was start to do my prayer and sending loving energy to them, because they are my family. And whether they ever connect again with me, I don't know. But we do text now and then, like birthdays and holidays and stuff like that. So, and they did congratulate me on the books being published. But it is hard. And sometimes we have to accept that maybe they were like my first husband, who was abusive. I realized that he had a situation when he was 12 or 13, that his mother passed away from stomach cancer, and they got rid of the other siblings, kind of farmed them out, but he saw her die. He saw her get emaciated and all that. And so he had this energy of being a hard luck person, and he had lots of anger and stuff like that. It's sort of like, I can't, well, he's passed since then, but I can't hate somebody who's wounded, because I was so wounded, and I made so many mistakes. I chose him. I literally grasped onto him because I thought that was intimacy. I
I can understand where you're coming from. I have to admit, in my gratitude practice, I give thanks for what I have very few people I would class as enemies, mainly because there's very few who are worthy
yeah.
of the title, frankly,
I hear you. Yeah.
But we'll use the phrase loosely. Those who've done me serious harm might be an appropriate one. And I give thanks for that, because I would not be who I am today, would not be able to give in the way that I do today if I hadn't had those experiences.
And
Although,
oh yes, I hear you. Yeah.
I would never wish it on anyone.
Right.
And I didn't appreciate it as I was going through it,
Right.
understandably. But I can actually see it now from a different perspective, which is far more loving. And it makes more sense to me to work that way. So the reason I asked about the kindness of strangers and acknowledging that, because I think it's very important, because I used to have sorry if I'm waffling. I had a Bernese
No.
Mountain Dog, and she was absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. She got little princess pose, with little paws out and a little head on here, and she was absolutely gorgeous. And you could go anywhere with her. And I used to watch her. I've always been a people watcher, and I used to watch her.
Uh-huh.
And I would see somebody pouring down torrential rain, somebody coming along seriously grumpy, don't want to be here, basically. And
Yeah.
they'd glance over slightly at her, they'd see her, and there'd be this enormous grin. And for that moment, they had joy. And then they'd sort of like realize where they were. They're still in the rain. And they'd sort of like, oh, okay. But then,
Oh
it made
yes,
them smile. So the kindness of strangers for me, when I've been very seriously ill, I'm exceptionally good at collapsing. got it down to a fine art now. I fall backwards, and I generally speaking wear a ponytail so that when my head hits the concrete, it will bounce, which will make me laugh, which will release endorphins to stop pain. But I have been rescued on numerous occasions by complete strangers. And
Wow.
I can remember eventually one of my writing ventures, I wrote to 2 of the local newspapers, not expecting to get anything from it, frankly. And I wrote in basically giving examples of 5 different events that people had done, ranging from youngsters, children, who wouldn't be expected to be kind to somebody, you know, in a lot of
Oh,
societal
yeah.
structures, right? To, you know, an ex-fireman who happened to be there, you know, a couple who were doing a good deed and saw me rolling
Wow.
in my black coat, if you can imagine, it's completely black
Wow.
night, no lighting, and all they could see was me rolling into the gutter.
Oh, wow.
If I hadn't moved, they'd have hit me. So all sorts of different stories like that, which I wanted people to know. We'd gone through a spate of newspapers where everything was so negative, and it
Mm-hmm.
annoyed me, obviously. So I then wrote in with this story, and I thought that it was something that people needed to hear and to remember, because we hear so much of the negative. And
Oh, right.
I wrote a letter. It's quite lengthy. As you can see, I talk, and my letters are not much better. No matter how concise I try to be, they tend to be lengthy. And I thought to myself, oh, they'll never put it in the letter section. It's way too long. You know, they only want these little ditty things. But hey, I'm going to send it anyway. And following week, got the newspaper, didn't see it. And it wasn't until till the 2 weeks after, you know, so the next newspaper had come out. And I was in a shop and somebody actually asked me, was that you who wrote that letter? And I thought, how the hell would you know it's me? You don't even know my name. Do you know what I mean?
Right, right.
And I said, how did you know? She said, and they said, well, it was in the paper. I said, well, it wasn't in the paper. Anyway, I, dippy moment, missed this letter that had actually been printed, and it
Wow.
had taken up the majority of the newspaper. And what I loved was one of the responses which came back, a phrase I'll never forget: power to your pen.
Oh,
And I've held that because
yes.
I thought, even if it's only that one person, they've heard the message, and it's
Yes,
wonderful.
absolutely. Yeah, I
And it
hear
doesn't
you.
get acknowledged enough, if you like. So when I saw your relationship in the list of relationships, I thought to myself, yes, that one needs bringing in. And obviously these days we have our lovely little virtual support networks and stuff like that,
Well,
which
you
adds to
know,
my mention.
there's nothing more fulfilling in to walk up to a complete stranger and say, gosh, I love that dress, you know, I love that haircut or something like that, because it makes their whole day. And
Yeah, one of my favorites. If you ever want to do this, I find it really good fun because I can be very straight-faced when necessary. And you've had good service of whatever it might be, and they've been really good, and you like them. And at the very end, you say to them very seriously, can I speak with your manager, please? And you can see them like going, oh my God, what have I done? You know, I can't resist it. I'm terrible. And they tootle off, obviously, and they get the manager, and the manager comes back, and you can see he's there, like looking at them, going, "What have you done? You know, you're in for it," sort of thing. And I then very quietly say to them, I just wanted to thank you because obviously your excellent leadership has ensured that this person has been absolutely wonderful. Their standard of service is brilliant.
I
Really
love
think you
it.
should give them a raise, you know, anything like that to keep it going. And the
Wow.
relief on the person's face and the shock. I have to admit, I'm naughty. I get a buzz out of it, but it's fun to do because it does actually give, you know, a really good
Absolutely.
fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for your input tonight, Coralee. And I love, as I put in the chat, I do love the what would you call it, picture behind you. It's beautiful.
Oh, yes. Well,
Yes.
it's the basis of my whole life these days, and I've been coaching for about 7 years, and And one day I thought, if you, let's see, there next to it is some mandalas. I'm really into mandalas.
Yeah.
And so I thought I got to put that up because it's the one that it's the thought that coming alive that was so me, because I felt so stuck and so dead, and I don't feel that way anymore.
And mandalas are very, very good for that because they give direction in life, aren't they? They're about
Oh yes,
living
yes.
life and finding your way.
It's putting an abstract thought into a physical form, and I did a lot of my healing work when I was growing and learning using mandalas. I'd give them energy, and it was fun.
Right, I will be quiet now so that somebody else can speak, but thank you, Coralee.
Oh, thank you. This has been great.
It's awesome just to be able to have these honest conversations on a summit, so it doesn't have to be PowerPoint heavy, and we can tell stories, share stories, and
Right.
just have conversations. I love
Yes.
this.
Yes. Well,
Coralee, thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. I love sharing this thing that I do because it's so hopeful. People that have no hope that their life can be any different, and it's not true. It can change, and just focusing a little differently or finding some skills.
Fantastic. And yes, Coralee's amazing gift for all of us is to schedule a discovery session. So the link is in the chat, and she had put her contact information on the screen. I hope you took a screenshot of that. If not, her website information, all that good stuff is also in the chat too. So definitely reach out to Coralee. All right, awesome. Coralee, thank you. Yeah, unmute yourselves and let's just give her a round of applause for everything she shared with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coralee.